So the Line 6 HX Stomp is one of the most popular, if not the most popular, amp modelers on the marketplace right now. And for good reason. It's small, it's compact, it has tons of great tones, and it's extremely user-friendly. And the addition to the HX Stomp XL added 5 more additional buttons to the already powerful HX Stomp. But in 2024, I don't know if you should buy the HX Stomp, the HX Stomp XL, or even the Helix for that matter. At least don't buy it new, and if you do, don't think this is going to be your end-all, be-all amp modeler. Let's get into it. You see, the Helix came out in 2015, which is almost 10 years ago as I'm recording this video. That is ancient technology, especially when you're thinking of things like computers. And before you go down like, well, that's just the Helix. Like, stop it right there, Jimmy. The HX Stomp is literally the exact same thing as the Helix. It's just a different, hardware, different button layout, and less processing power. It's the same thing. And yes, when the Helix came out in 2015, it blew the competition out of the waters. I mean, one of the most strongest amp modelers at the time was the Axe-Fx 2. And you almost needed a degree from like MIT in order to figure out, at least by comparison to this bad boy in the Helix. Like, this was infinitely more simple and sounded nearly as good back then. The Helix was, and in many ways still is, an awesome amp modeler. But it's really old technology, and I don't think you're going to get as much bang for your buck when it comes to this old tech. Technology ages quickly. And the velocity of obsolescence is even faster and grows faster every single day. Whereas digital technology like this needs to be replaced or at least upgraded every 18 to 36 months. And yes, Line 6 does a tremendous job of updating and upgrading the platform and the digital software and firmware of the Helix and the HX Stomp and all the similar Helix products. I'm going to just use Helix in general terms, but it's all the Helix products, from the Helix floor moored unit to the rack mounted unit to the HX Stomp to the what is it, HX1 that came out last year. It's all kind of the same thing. They're doing a tremendous job of keeping up to date with the firmware and the software. But when it comes to the velocity of obsolescence for digital hardware, it's usually between 3 to 5 years. Just for context, the Helix came out a year after the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, the previous generation of today's consoles. And if you're not a gamer like I am, for even more context, the Helix came out the same year as the iPhone 6. This is ancient technology by today's standards. I am currently filming this video right now on an iPhone Pro 15. Subsequently, 9 years ago was the 6, and 9 years ago was the Helix. You get my point. It's really old technology. Think about the iPhone 6 compared to what you have now. Like, when I looked up that stat, my floor hit the ground. I was like, I can't believe it's that old. When you finally compare it to something that you use on a daily basis, like an iPhone. It's great tech, but it's old tech, and it's time to start looking at something new. Which leads to my second point, is that Line 6 is likely going to come out with a new flagship amp modeler fairly soon. With anything in this space, it's hard to tell exactly, but 10 years seems to be a very good time to start revamping your flagship models. Whether that's releasing the Helix 2 or the HX Stomp Deluxe, or whether it's a brand new, completely different product that we've never seen today, I would be willing to bet Line 6 is probably going to release some new version and the next step in evolution to this Helix technology, probably somewhere between the next 6 and 12 months. If you look at the timeline difference between when they released the Helix and when they released the HX Stomp, it was 3 years. And then 3 years after they released the HX Stomp, they released the HX Stomp XL with the 5 additional buttons. And since then, we haven't really seen anything new. And yeah, they did release the HX1, which is a single pedal, but I still don't really fully understand that product. The HX Stomp is already so compact anyways, but hey, Kemper released the Profiler player earlier last year as well, so clearly I don't understand nearly as much as the manufacturers do in that space. But regardless, I wouldn't be surprised if Line 6 unveils something at Summer NAMM 2024, or at least sometime in the next year. Nothing's for certain, and we probably won't know until Line 6 wants us to know when the next shiny object is, but I would be surprised if we don't know something more about it by at least at the latest Q1 2025. But while we wait for the next product, let's go back to talking about the HX Stomp. And one of my biggest gripes with this pedal is its processing power. Now, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love the tones that I can get out of this bad boy. And the patches are pretty fantastic. I mean, like, I can get a really good sounding live mix when I'm very strategic about what sound I want to make. But therein lies the problem is I have to be very specific because I don't want to be doing tap dances all night long, trying to go between presets and then going between snapshots. Like, I want to be able to just press buttons and be like, all right, like this is like whatever. And the processing power for the kind of patches that I want to have to minimize the amount of times I'm stomping on stuff, you need a lot more processing power in order to do that with the HX Stomp. Or you have to be a lot more strategical and really think things out and trying to save as much processing power as you can. And yeah, that's why you see quite a bit of streamlining videos on this channel about talking about how to streamline the process of using this HX Stomp, especially with a live situation, because I'm trying to cram as much features onto one single patch as I can in order to get the most bang from each patch's buck. And the amount of times that I've hit the maximum amount of processing power and I'm like crammed out, like it's a lot. It's not all the time, but it's a lot more than say like something like that FM9. And when I say maxing out the processing power, I'm not hitting like 100, but it starts getting away where you can't run double amps. You can't run double cabs or double microphones. And that's where I think the true power of something like this is having that kind of tonal experimentation and capabilities. And when I'm trying to go a little bit overboard, like it tops out. And in many cases, especially if you're only running one amp and you want, say, like a Fender, like Champ tone, like you're not going to run into that issue. Like I recognize that. But like when I first bought this, I was comparing this to the Axe 2 XL Plus, which came out in like 2018, around the same time. And sure, it's kind of uncomparable in terms of price point, but like I rarely would ever max out the Axe 2. I had to really try. And then with that FM9 Turbo Mark II or whatever over there, I've tried my darnest to max that thing out, and I still can't get it. And in 2024, when you can get that versus this, and yes, there is a price point difference there, but I mean, if you're really looking at processing power, there are better options than the HX Stomp XL in 2024. I just think that running into limitations, especially with some of the newer software and newer models that you have in here, should be something that makes you at least stop and consider, do I really want a product that might cause me limitations, especially in 2024 when there's plenty of other options out there? Look, this isn't necessarily Helix or HX Stomp killers, but if any of this resonates with you, I would avoid buying an HX Stomp or Helix at all costs in 2024, especially if you're somebody who needs to have the latest and greatest technology. But yeah, I'm going to be still using this in 2024. It's going to go on my board back where it's supposed to be. I don't know if I'd go out and buy it new this year, but I'm going to still be making videos about it. So if you're interested in wondering why I think this is awesome, and yes, I am playing devil's advocate here because if you're going to talk about the bad side, you got to talk about the good side. So I'll leave that video on the screen and I'll see you over there. And until then, let the music play.